Hi guys, welcome to another video. In this video we will talk about working with date time data. Now, date and time data types are used in SQL to store data and time values in various formats. So the data types available in SQL are listed below. So a key takeaway, we should be aware that this differs in terms of SQL engines that we use. In terms of, so in this case we are using our SQLite, right? And it might be different in terms of your Microsoft SQL Server, your MS SQL, your Postgres SQL and all that, right? So rather MySQL and the rest. So depending on the SQL engine you are using, this data type, right? Date and time data type might be different. So yeah. So number one is we have date time data type. It stores date and time both from January 1 to December 31, right? With an accuracy of 3.3 milliseconds. And then the format is basically year, month, days, and hours, minutes, and then seconds, right? So we also have date time 2. This stores date and time both from January 001 to December 31st 999 with an accuracy of 100 nanoseconds. Then it can contain 6 to 8 bytes, and also we have small date time. So that's why I said depending on your SQL engine, these can vary, right? Small date time, it stores date and time both from January 1, 1900 to June 6, 2079 with an accuracy of 1 minute. It's stored in the format of year, month, and days, hours, minutes, seconds, right? And can contain 4 bytes. So we have that, we have date, we have time. Date can only store from January 1, 001 to December 31, 999 in the format of year, month, and days, right? It contains, or rather it can contain 3 bytes. And then we have timestamp, we have time, we have date time offset. So if you look at this example, you would notice that when creating a table, you can use different date and time data type that you want, depending on how you want to design that column, right? Let's say in this case, we are creating a table called sales details, and we have a column under the sales details to be our order dates. We used the normal date data type, which we said stores dates from this to this in this format, right? From year, month, and then days, right? And then when we wanted to create the shipping date column, we used date time. So this would definitely house date and also timestamp, right? Or rather the time as well. So and then delivered date, we just have timestamp data type. And then for our time column, we just have the time data type. So these are the data types that are different depending on the SQL engine that you are using. Now, what is important to note is because of this data type, because of the nature of this data type, we can do a lot of manipulations, we can do a lot of calculations with these dates, right? We can do difference in dates to have like intervals between 2 dates, right? We can also get a portion out of this date to give us more insights in our data, which we'll see. We can also use syntax like between, right? That will help us get insights from one date to another, right? So these are the things that we can use to better explain or to better work with our data type, right? So let's head over to our SQL engine, which is our DBMS SQLite, and then we perform some miracles. Let's head over. So yes, we are here. So this was where we stopped in our previous video, and then I will do what we've been doing initially. I will just do working with dates time data. Yeah, so let's check. Let's look at. So we have the album table, artist, customer. So let's look at employee. Let's work with employee to see if we would have a column that has a date data type, whether timestamp, date time, date time. Let's just see if we would have something that has to do with date, right? So let's check for the information of all the columns, the data type of all the columns under our employee table, right? So what we need to do is to use our pragma keyword, right? Pragma. So our table info, because that's basically what we want to do. And then employee, right? Yeah, this is it. Close our bracket, and then let's see. Run this. Then let's see. So now, yeah, so we have a column called birth date and hire date in our employee table that houses a date time data type. So yes, we can play with this. We can obviously play with this. So let's see how we can do a lot of beautiful things with these two columns, right? So now, so let's say we want to get difference between these two dates, right? Let's say you want to have like an interval or a difference between these two dates. You want to subtract one date from another. That is basically how another way you can play or you can work with these columns that have dates or date time data type, right? So let's go. Let's say, okay, let's form a question, right? And ask. So we can say we want to write a query. Write a query that will show the age of all employees when they were hired. Alright, so we want to basically show the age of employees because, hey guys, right, we have the birth date of all our employees, right? We have a column that stores the birth date of all our employees. We also have a column called hire date, so the date that we employed our employees. So we want to know the age of these employees when we hired them, right? So basically it would be the hire date minus the birth date, right? Because definitely the hire date would have a more further date compared to the birth date, right? So we need to subtract birth date from hire date, right? So we would do, and all this, we can do this calculation in our select statement, because when we do it in our select statement, we'll have a newfound column that we can call age, right? So we want it to be visible in our final result, hence why it is in our select statement. Very important. So we do select. So now, because I always like to look at my table to understand what I'm trying to do, which I just broke down right now, I will do select or from employee, because that's the table that we're interested in. So if I run this, so I will have an idea of what I want to do. So you see, so we have hire date, birth date. So this employee, Adams Andrew, general manager, was employed on 14th of August 2022, or rather 2002, and then his date of birth was 18th of February 1962. So because we want to get the age as at when we hired him, right, we would need to subtract birth date from our hire date, right? Yeah, it's as simple as that. That's what we want to do. So we'll go back and say, okay, since we know this, go and say select. Okay, now would you like to have all the columns, right, in your final result? I basically would not want to have it. It depends on the ask, but in my head, I just want to have like maybe my last name, first name, and then the age, right? The difference between the two columns, birth date and hire date, in my final result. So in that sense, I will just do select first name, right? Instead of doing select all columns, do my select first name, also my last name column. If I can have my last name column also visible, it will be fine. Then remember, we want to subtract birth date from hire date, right? Notice the year. You notice that 2002 is more farther compared to 1962, right? So we need to subtract this from this. So we have the age as at when Adams Andrew was employed, right? Was hired. So we do hire date, right? This is a column called hire date in our employee table, minus birth dates, right? So what we are doing is creating a new column that would have a data type called interval. So that's why I said it depends on different SQL engines, and there are some SQL engines that will not have interval data type, right? So, but in this sense, we want to have, there are some SQL engine that would have interval data type, but would have it in a different name, right? Let me use that word. Let me use that analogy. So hire dates minus your birth dates. So because this is housed in our select statement, once we do this, it's going to give us a new column, right, called hire date minus your birth date, right? But because of that, we want to use our alias. So we'll have it as we want to have this as hire date minus birth date in our final result, right? However, as age when hired. I think this goes well. So I think okay. So we can now run this. Let's see if we run this, what would happen. So if I do this, first of all, let's run it. See? So we now have, because we chose these columns, right? First name, last name. So this is what will be returned in our final result, right? And then we chose hire date minus birth date, and then we did an alias. Instead of having this as the column name, we now have age when hired, right, as our column name, right? So I think that is that. We've been able to get the age of our employees as at when they were hired. So we can even sort this, right? We can also sort and say, okay, we want to order by our age when hired column, right? So we can do order by age when hired. So because I did it ordered by age when hired, I can say, okay, let me do it in descending order, so we have the highest up top, then it goes to the list. So yes, we have our oldest employee as at when we hired to be Margaret Park, 56 years old. Yeah. So I think that's that. We've been able to see that we can do subtraction of dates to have meaningful insight, right? We can also do addition, right? But it would basically not give you something as an interval like this, right? So what I mean is, if I say I want to add 10 to the hire date, okay, let's try something. Let me just do this, and then I do copy paste, and then I do instead of having higher, okay, let me still leave it, and then I call, let's say I do my higher dates, right, then plus 5 or plus 10 further. So let's see what will happen. Let's see the difference, right? Remember, we did not fix as an alias, so you see that higher date plus 10 will be a column name. Right, so let's see higher date plus 10. So what happened is, okay, for me to also make this very much detailed, I should fix the higher date. So it will be, yeah. So let's run it again so everybody would understand. So now notice, guys, when we subtracted between higher date and birthday that gave us age when hired, we had like a meaningful information, right? We had their age, right, an integer. So basically this is an interval data type, right, but it looks like an integer, right, which makes sense, right, which helps us get more insight, right, to the different age of our customers, or rather our employees. Then, but now when we want to add, right, we won't have this kind of information. Why? Because we are just adding 10 to the year, right? So it's quite different when you are subtracting, when you are trying to get intervals, right? So if you notice, what we did is, when we did higher date plus 10, it gave us 2003 plus 10, which gave us a result of 2013, right? 2002, it gave us 2012. But notice that we don't have the date time data type, but we just have it in 2013, right? So it is worth noting. So we can basically have that interval, right, where we subtract different dates and it gives us meaningful insight. Also, we can also add integers to our date, right, but it will just help us increase the number of year in our date column, right? So let's try another example, and then I think we can be happy with what we've done. So let's see if we can write a query that calculates monthly or month to month, okay, month to month revenue. Yep. So let's see if we can write a query that calculates month to month revenue. So if I'm looking at getting a month to month revenue, I need to start looking at what table will give me this information. Definitely it's not my employee table, right? Because if I'm saying revenue, where would I see a table that houses revenue, right? So let's look at invoice table or invoice line table, right? Because every other table I'm seeing here is kind of descriptive: employee, January, media, playlist track, album, artist. But I'm looking at invoice. So invoice deals with amount, right? Or sales, or something that deals with sales. So if I go and I do, so if I don't want to write my select all from invoice, I can still come to my browse data and then look up my invoice table. So I'll look at, I have my invoice ID, invoice date, billing address, billing city, billing state, billing postal. Oh, we have total, right? So I think this would help us with our revenue. Right? Excuse me. I think this will help us with our revenue because it's telling us total amount for this invoice was $1.98, whatever. Right? So I think invoice table is our table. So you see how I'm asking myself questions to understand what table am I going to reference, right? It's very, very important that you need to understand your question or what you want to do before you start writing your query. So we've been able to conclude that invoice table should be our table, right? So now let's go. And we've noticed that we have a column called total that we can get our revenue from, right? And then, but hey, the question says write a query that calculates month to month revenue. So how do you do that? So there's a syntax, the same way I showed everybody when we were working with text data. I showed everybody the like syntax that helps a lot. There's a syntax in when you are trying to extract some part of your data type, right? We call it sub-str, right? It helps us a lot to have like a sub or a mini part of your data type. So let me try and explain with the query. So let's say I have select select substring. So guys, remember that we have a column called invoice date, right? So if I use my substring, I can extract just the month and then the year. I can extract only the month. I can extract only the day. So that's basically what we want to do, because the question says we want to see by different months, right? By different year, we want to see the revenue. That's the question. That's what we're trying to do. So I'll say, let me just explain what that substring does, and then we'll write the full query. So if I do sub-str, this is the keyword I'm talking about, and I do, and hey, remember, look at this intelligence. It says it returns all characters through the end of the string X, beginning with the white, right? So what it means is, I want to do, where do I want to extract from? What column do I want to extract? Remember, we want to extract something that has from our invoice date column, right? I'll do invoice. So I'm just trying to explain this sub-str keyword. So invoice date, right? Now comma. So if I do something as so let me first of all do 17 or 14. Yeah, let me do first 4 so everybody will understand. So if I do this from what table, I think is invoice. Yeah, invoice. Should I limit it? No, let's just work with this. So if I do this, so I'm trying to explain what this, for everybody to even better understand, I can do, let me make my invoice date show, right? The main invoice date that I'm extracting from, right? So if I run this, let's see. So what this means is, guys, pay attention, right? It says select invoice date, right? Which is this. Then substring of invoice date, this column. I want to be able to extract something from my invoice date column, but please give me in another column, hence this comma, right? Then after fixing the column that I want to, the date column that I want to extract from, comma, what this one works for is telling us the position. Where do you want us to extract from? Where do you want us to start? Where do you want SQL to start extracting from? So this means first index, right? So the first index in this sense is here. So please extract from the first character, right? Or the first position, which is 2. So, and then how many? So this is the position, this is the count, right? Then how many characters, right, do you want us to extract? Right? So in this sense, I said I want just 4. So it will go and say, okay, this is the position 1, 2, 3, 4. Hence why it extracted 2009 for us. That's 4-letter words with the first position, right? So if I say, okay, I want, instead of the first position, I want from the second position, right? Now notice what will happen if I do this and then I run. See, it's giving me, it started from, instead of it to start extracting from your first position, which is 2, you start extracting from the second position. And then remember I said I want 4 characters, so it now started counting from the second position, 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is this, right? So if I say, okay, from the second position, I still need like maybe 8 characters, right? Let's see if we run this, what will happen. You see, So it has given us from your second position, right, which is 0. Then please count 8 characters and then extract it for us. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Hence why you see this. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, inclusive. So the hyphen is also inclusive, right? It's a character as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I hope with this I've been able to explain our substring. So in that sense, we can be able to get our month-to-month revenue because, hey, remember that we still have this column that can help us with that, right? Total, right? So we have solved one part of the question where we can extract and get a column that will just give us month or a column that will just give us year, right? And then we will now compare it to the total column, right? This column called total that will help us get our revenue. So let's go. So now no need for invoice date. I've been able to explain sub str. So we say because I want my year to be inclusive as well, right? So it will not be too confusing for everybody. So let's also include the year. So normally I would have done invoice dates, right? Because I will start from here. I just want only the month, right? I will do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll do my 6th position, and then I just want only 2. Right? Only 2 character counts, which is just this 01, 02, 03, 06, 11. Or rather, I'm sorry. 01, 01, 01, 0. So this is the month. That is what I want to be extracted. So I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 2 characters. So if I run this, notice that what will come out will just be the month. Right? See? 01, 01, 01, all the way 05, 012, right? That's basically what we do. But let us also include the year, right? So it will be more, at least we can ascribe what month is to what year. So in that sense, I'll just do, I think we'll do 1, then 7. Let's see. If I do this, yes, exactly. So 2009. So we now have the month and also what year is this month, right? Because we might definitely have other years, and then if we just fix only 010101, we would not know what year it is ascribed to, despite the fact that yes, our question is saying month-to-month revenue, right? Which is, it does not really care, since the question is saying month-to-month revenue. We are not interested in the year, right? So please guys, don't get confused. So I think because the question is saying month-to-month revenue, so let me just stick by 6 and then 2. I'm sorry guys, but maybe we can try the year later on. So yes, let's do this. So I've been able to do justice to substring, right? Yeah. So now let's go over to the second, because we cannot have this title name, so I can do as month, right? Because this column name is not descriptive enough. So we can do as month, and then we go to aggregate. We want to aggregate this column called total, right? We want to aggregate it to give us sum. So when we sum this total, it's going to give us the total revenue, right? Since we have per invoice, this was what was raised, 1.98, 3.96. So we want to get the total of this, so that we'll have the total revenue, right? So we'll go and do, see the way I'm breaking all this thing down. It's very, very important. So one line of question, right, might entail a lot of lines of queries. So it's very, very important that you break it down, understand what is really, really needed. So we'll go and say Next thing we can do is to aggregate, which is using our sum function, right? On our total, right? So we have a table, or rather a column in our invoice table that is total, which I've showed everyone. But we want to get the sum of this total, right? But hey, let's try something. If I run this, let's try something. Let's see. Right? So it's giving me for this. It's giving me for 01. It's giving me the sum total. So what he did was he went to, normally I'm supposed to group by, right? So that we'll have by different month, right? It will give us the sum total. But what he did was he just went and summed all the total and then by just 1 month, right? But the idea is I don't want this to be in one decimal place. So why I did this, please don't pay attention to this month now. Why I did this is I just want to show us the result when we leave it like this, right? But we can also say, okay, instead of having one decimal place, let's have 2 decimal places. So we can use another keyword called round, and then, so what are you trying to round? I'm trying to round this result called sum total, right? Into how many places? I put my comma. I want it to be in 2 decimal places, right? So if when you have rounded up we still have other decimal places, please, highest should be just 2 decimal places after your decimal point. So that's it. I think that's that. So we can call this, instead of having our sum total as the name, just the same way we did here, alias, we can call it as revenue. So let me still run this. So we've changed this revenue, right? And we've also changed the month. So I think instead of, so let's try grouping this, right? So instead of grouping by, remember when we did order by, I still went to tag age when hired, right? We can also use positions to group, to order by, to sort, and the rest. So what I mean by, I can do group by, right? Because these are the 2 columns now, month and revenue will be the 2 columns that are showing in my final results, just like this, right? I can just say group by the first column, right? So I'll do group by 1. So no need for me to write group by month. I can still come here and say, okay, group by month, right? We all know this. This is what I did here, right? But instead of that, I can still use my position to group by. So group by 1, and then let's see if we group by 1, what will happen. See, notice that we now have, it has now spread all our revenues to different months, and this is what our question says, right? We want to have the month to month revenue, not the year to year revenue, not the year month revenue, right? We just want to have the month to month revenue regardless of the year. We want to juxtapose all the months in one year, all the months in another year, every month, right? So far it is January, February. We want to just see all revenues for all the Januaries, right? For all the years. Right? We want to see all revenue for all the Februaries, right? That's what we just done. We've gotten month to month revenue, right? So I've been able to group it by. That's why grouping by is very, very important. So far you have an aggregated function. You always group it by the column before the aggregated function. It's very, very important, right? So I can say I also want to sort order by, order by. So instead of ordering by month, I want to order by my revenue, right? Which is my second column, right? So order by 2 in a descending order. So we'll have the highest revenue to be at the top, right? Then if I run this again, see, so we now have, notice that January has the highest revenue so far, right? Regardless of the year. So in January, we've been able to decipher that January is our highest month that gives us more revenue, right? Maybe a lot of people come from Christmas, they buy a lot of tracks, records, album, and the rest on January's, right? So meaning we are doing something right in January, right? So this is basically our month-to-month revenue, and this is how you write your query. This is how you use SubSTR to extract information from your data type column, and it gives us more granularity to understand more, to have more insight in our data set. So let's say we want to now have year-to-year revenue, right? So what I would do is, remember we did 6 and 2. So in this sense, I will just do, I think it's 1. Remember how it was initially. So let's go back, right? If I do 1 and 4, remember guys, if I do 1 and 4, meaning I'm starting from the first index to then 4-letter words, right? 4-letter count. So I think it's 1 and 4. So if we want our year-to-year revenue, we can do 1 and then come here to do 4. So if I run this again, let's see what will happen. See how important. So because I'm using position, so I'm not even bothered about changing month or whatever, right? I can still run and everything will update. See? So you see that because I changed how I want my extraction to occur, we now have, so the only difference now would I'll need to change this to year, right? So if I run this again, so remember this, instead of month, we now have year. Yes, we have year. And then we'll notice that 2010 we have 481. So 2010 is our best year, right? We had a lot of profit, we made a lot of revenue as compared to 2012, as compared to 2011. So our worst year has been our beginning year, which gave us $449.46. So we need to ask ourselves questions. What happened? Why from all the way from 2009 we jumped to, in fact, the highest revenue that we've made so far, right? So we need to ask ourselves questions. You see how beautiful this is? You have more information, you have more in-depth analysis to your data set. So I think with that, I've been able to show us SubSTR, how you can extract date, how you can use date time column or date time column that has date time data type, right? To get more insights from your data set. We've been able to add up date columns. We've been able to subtract date columns, right? That gives us intervals. And yeah, we've been able to work with date time data type. Oh, what did I do here? Database, no. So just data. So we've been able to do all this, and remember we used keywords like SubSTR, that's very important, and then we've been able to use aggregated function as well to give us more granularity when we use our group by. So yes, we have come to the end of this video, and I will see you guys on the next one. So take care.